Alright, Uncharted 4 is just around the corner, and until then, I'll be reviewing the original 3 remastered versions on the PS4 every week. Why? Because I have never played them before. Yeah, So sit back, put your guns down, and I hope you enjoy what I am calling Uncharted Month. So let's kick off this week's episode of 3 Minute Reviews with the first game of the series, Uncharted Drake's Fortune. Now, as soon as you start playing, you'll immediately realise that the graphics really don't hold the test of time. The characters look plain, and despite this being remastered, it's blatantly apparent that they are from the PS3's early days. That being said, once you're a few levels in, the stage design really steps up and it looks amazing. I mean, some of them caught me off guard and had me jaw dropped. That's something Naughty Dog are masters at. Whenever it comes to landscapes, they are graphical marvels. They really do look so close to the real thing, and it just makes me more excited to see how they take this to the next level in its sequel on the PS4. Now, the controls in the game are good, but platforming is seriously a problem. There are numerous times you try to jump off one wall to another, but despite the fact that you are pointing your analog stick in the right direction, Drake just doesn't angle himself where you want him to. This happens a lot, and it makes platforming very frustrating. Combat is simple and fun, but when you try to string together hard attacks, the controls feel automated and you don't feel like you are fully in control. That being said, when they work, it is so satisfying, and coming from Golden Abyss, I really appreciated the dedicated combat controls. Now, one of the things I detest in games is brutally extensive puzzles, and I thought this would be no different. I'm glad to say I was wrong, and I thoroughly enjoyed every single puzzle that came my way. Usually games like this make you resort to following playthroughs, but I completed all the puzzles on my own initiative, and it was so rewarding. It really reminded me of the movie National Treasure. Just like the film, you are searching for treasure and have to follow clues whilst physically and strategically moving objects around to open a concealed passage. Really, they were so well done. This game had some extremely exciting set pieces as well, such as manning a turret on a car, which was like a scene right out of an action movie. Also, in the last third, there was a huge horror segment that took me by surprise, and playing the game now, it blatantly shows the potential for Naughty Dog to later develop The Last of Us. Also, the soundtrack was good too. From what I've heard, it gets better in the later games, but still, it perfectly matched the tone the game wanted to relay. I really liked little details too, like shooting enemies just before they threw a grenade and watch them blow to smithereens. Now, it's not all perfect. I did hate some stuff too, such as constantly getting lost and not knowing where to go. Sometimes you're guided in the right direction, but for the most part you're on your own. Then there's the water stages. Oh man, I hated these. They had terrible controls and the whole section didn't feel fully developed. Instead, it just felt like a chore to get through. Also, the boss battle in the end was really cheap. Now, after having said all of that, I still haven't told you one of the best parts of this game. What really won me over and made me want to play till the very end was Nathan Drake himself. He is just such an awesome character, and his charm, wit, and comedic dialogue was done so flawlessly.
Nate? Be careful.
Come on. I always am. Ah! I did not see that!
He has become one of my favourite characters in all of video games, and that really is saying something. In the end, guys, Naughty Dog's first outing with Uncharted was a good one, but some of the problems I mentioned, particularly the platforming and lack of direction, dropped the score down, and that results in a 7 out of 10. Do you agree or disagree? Sound off below in the comments, and stay tuned for next week where I review Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, which according to a friend of mine, I will enjoy much more than Drake's Fortune.
I like this one better.
Sully, you beautiful son of a bitch!
Thank you very much for watching, and I will see all of you on the next episode of 3 Minute Reviews. Alright, so last week I reviewed the remastered version of Uncharted Drake's Fortune, which, as I said, I had never played before. Anyway, I thought the game was good, but it had a lot of flaws. Let's see if Naughty Dog have fared better with the second game of the series, Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. So right off the bat, as soon as I started Uncharted 2, the first thing I noticed was that the graphics were unbelievably improved. They are just light years ahead of Uncharted 1 and still hold up today. Every time I entered a new stage, I couldn't stop panning around and taking a look at the beautiful craftsmanship that went into the stage design. Speaking of stage design, it was so realistic and interactive. The opening train level, for example, it was one of the many edge-of-your-seat moments where you had to make your way out before the train falls off a cliff with you still inside. There are so much more cinematic levels like this, and you'll see them throughout this episode. The next thing you'll notice is the controls. Just like the graphics, they are an insane improvement, and unlike the last game, I had next to no problems with the platforming. Seriously, I am amazed as to how Naughty Dog have taken the rather buggy controls from the first game and fine-tuned them to this extent. Even stuff I didn't know needed fixing, such as the grenade controls and blind shooting, have been revised to the point of perfection. Seriously guys, the controls are so damn near perfect in this game, and Naughty Dog deserves so much praise for that. Now, in my review of Drake's Fortune, I didn't really talk about the story, as I thought it had great moments, but on the whole it was just okay. In Uncharted 2 it actually starts off that way, but after the first few missions something unexpected happens, and that results in legitimate character friction and trust issues between our main characters. Already that is so much more interesting than the generic story we got in 1, and it just gets better and better. Also, I mustn't have been the only one who didn't know where to go in the last game, because Uncharted 2 points you in the right direction a lot more. It doesn't hold your hand, but it very inconspicuously points you in the right direction. Now, the shooting mechanic hasn't been improved much, as it was already pretty spot on in the first game, but you do get a bigger selection of weapons, and I couldn't help but laugh every time I use the riot shield, as you really catch the bad guys at a disadvantage. Now, I know what you're thinking, is there anything I didn't like about this game? Well, first off, I despised the cylinder puzzles. Unlike the rest of the game, and even Uncharted 1, they had no imagination, and you're forced to sit through Drake continuously and slowly turning them around. It really was insufferable. Next up is the ice levels. At first I was enjoying them as it was a good change of tone, but after a while, and I do mean a while, it got tedious. Up until this point, Uncharted 2 was doing a great job with regards to pacing, but this was the only part that really felt drawn out. Also, I hated the ice monsters. Now later on in the game it was actually fun taking them out, but when they were introduced, they were invincible and they just wouldn't die. Also, sometimes the game wouldn't let you climb down a building unless you take the exact path it wants you to. And that really is all the complaints I had throughout this game. Everything is an improvement over its predecessor. Heck, you even get a boss battle which is a million times better than that cheap joke of a boss we got in the last game. Overall guys, Uncharted 2 is a vast improvement over its predecessor. Everything you could possibly want from a video game sequel is here, and I am proud to give Uncharted 2 Among Thieves a 9 out of 10. Stay tuned for next week as I will be reviewing Uncharted 3, and then the week after that I will review the game we have all been waiting for, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. You will definitely want to stick around for that, guys.
Oh crap! Jump! Jump!
So that's about it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see all of you in the next episode of 3-Minute Reviews.
You okay back there?
Yeah! There's the lead car! Got it!
Hold on!
Ah, that's right, you bastards! We got you now! Oh, crap!
Hi everyone, this is it, the final game of the trilogy. So without any further...
Go back to the center of the world, you bum! Oh my eye!
So without any further ado, it's time to review Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception. So Uncharted 3 starts off very differently from the last two, and it feels like a breath of fresh air. The combat system is a big improvement, and what's better is that you can actually use it during shootouts. Usually in Uncharted, whenever you decide to use combat during a gunfight, it's suicide, but Naughty Dog have resolved that, and it makes the action gameplay so much more enjoyable, and it opens it up to more creative possibilities. Another little difference is that you can throw grenades back to your enemies when they land in close range to you. Now in terms of graphics, they are not a huge step up from the last game, they are more of an incremental update. That being said, where Uncharted 3 really steps up is in set pieces. Compared to the second game, they are much bigger in scope and feel like an even bigger budget action movie. To me, the aeroplane sequence really did stand out, and I will never forget it. Something else I really enjoyed was the origin story as to how Drake met Sully for the first time. It was so enjoyable, so much in fact that throughout the whole story I had a big smile on my face.
We've got him!
Also, Sully plays a much bigger role in this game, and let's be honest, without him the character interaction and story wouldn't be nearly as strong. Also, I despised the villains. They were menacing and I hated their guts. It definitely helps that they have history with our main duo. So, what didn't I like about this game? Well, the combat. I do love it, but there are a lot of times where it feels automated, like I'm just playing a rapid QuickTime sequence. So Naughty Dog have almost got it, but it still needs some tweaking. Also, sometimes you come across overpowered Terminators like this guy. I just shot him at close range with a shotgun and nothing. Also, this game had the same problem the first one did. There are times where I just didn't know where to go. It didn't happen as often as the first game, but it happened way more than 2, which felt like a step back. Next up is the puzzles. There were definitely some good ones, but overall they felt more generic and didn't have the same level of creativeness as the last 2 games. Also, it was great to see Chloe back, and even Cutter was a great addition, but in the last quarter of the game they just disappeared and I couldn't even remember why. Their departure was way too abrupt and it made them forgettable. And my final problem is to do with the story. I thought it was great, but where it really lost me was when they started talking about djinns. It came across way too supernatural, and it shows that Naughty Dog tried to get away with too much. Another problem with the story is that after a while it becomes Batman Begins. I'm not kidding guys, seriously. Heck, one of the main villains is practically the Scarecrow, who carries around darts that have some kind of fear toxin in them. And those are all my complaints. The positives are just endless. My favourite level of the entire thing has got to be the horse chase. You could ride your horse while shooting and jumping on and off at the same time, and the controls were perfect. This is what the water level in the first game tried to be and failed miserably. After seeing this, I am confident that Naughty Dog can make a great Western game, and I really want to see it happen. In the end guys, Uncharted 3 truly is a worthy sequel, and I am surprised that Naughty Dog were able to top the high level that they set with Uncharted 2, even with the destructible platforming levels. However, much like everyone else, I do like the second game of the trilogy the best, but this was still a great addition, and that's why Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception gets an 8 out of 10. We've done it guys. In a matter of 3 weeks I have played and reviewed the remastered Uncharted trilogy, and it is undoubtedly one of the best video game franchises I have ever played. So stay tuned for the launch of Uncharted 4 A Thief's End, and just a few days after its release I will have a review of it up on the channel. And thus concludes another episode. Before I go, I'll leave you with a question. What's your favourite Uncharted game? Thank you very much for watching, and I will see all of you in the next episode of 3 Minute Reviews.
I merely want what's mine.
Give me that back.
Cutter!
Oh no. Oh.
Shut up!
You fool!
Oh, you're bloody welcome, Your Majesty.
Marlowe, we have to get you out of here.
Oh, come on, they're a right pair of arseholes. What?
Hi everyone. It's been a long time coming, but Uncharted 4 has finally been released. So without any further ado, it's time to review Uncharted 4 A Thief's End. As soon as you start the game, you are thrown right into the action, and immediately I was jaw-dropped. The scenery and characters have so much personality to them, and they look so real. Every location is populated. Whenever you're driving around or climbing up tall buildings, you will always see living people and signs of wildlife. The graphics are just stunning, and undoubtedly they are some of the best I have ever seen. Something else that got a big upgrade is the sound effects. They are unlike anything I've heard in a video game. They actually sound real. This makes it much more immersive when you're shooting, blowing stuff up, or even platforming. Whenever you jump onto some wood or a wall to climb on, the sound effects have so much weight and gravitas to them. Seriously, the sound is so authentic and true to life that I don't think it can be topped by any game, period. So let's talk about the gameplay. In short, it was amazing. Surprisingly, the platforming feels slightly revamped with a couple new additions thrown in. Even the stealth gameplay has been improved and is far more efficient than it ever was. Now, I did notice a pretty big problem with the shooting mechanic. Usually in Uncharted I can shoot people with ease, but in Uncharted 4 I couldn't get an aim on anyone, and I actually had to manually adjust all the controls. And the funny thing is, I think Naughty Dog are actually aware of this because there is an auto aim mode available. And on a side note, how come we can't throw grenades back at the enemies like we could in the last game? Also, the armoured enemies are back, and unlike the previous games, they have been reduced to some of the cheapest enemies in the franchise. I mean, they seriously pissed me off, and I didn't like them at all. Now, seeing as this is much bigger in scope, naturally it's going to be easier to get lost. Most commonly in the car and boat stages. Now this is where Naughty Dog should have given us directions. I mean, if they are giving us the option to add auto-aiming to the gunplay, then why can't they give us the option to be pointed in the right direction? That really bothered me, and it made my playthrough a lot longer than it should have been. Now the composer for the music is different this time round. Naughty Dog hired Henry Jackman, who has composed music for many big blockbusters, including the new Captain America Civil War movie. And honestly, he does a great job. There are some really beautiful tracks here, and it perfectly matches with the gameplay. My only complaint with it and all of Jackman's compositions is that when the music is meant to be more intense, he usually makes it upbeat and playful. For example, there were some really intense shootouts, and the score became pretty much identical to the most happy music tracks from Civil War. I mean, come on Jackman, this is not a Marvel movie for under 12s. This is a game for people in their late teens. You gotta give us more credit than that. Next up is the story. Now I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I will just say that this is the best story out of all the Uncharted games, and it even has far superior villains as well. The characters' interactions are also much stronger. There's a very charming husband and wife conversation with Drake and Elena, and the game forces you to be a part of it. Really, I just did not want it to end. Also, seeing the relationship between Nate and his brother was really well executed. Especially when you find out that his brother is just as much a joker as he is.
Well, give it a pull.
What? Could be a trap.
You're already in there. What's the worst that could happen?
I lose my hand?
So we'll get you a nice hook.
So in conclusion, Uncharted 4 was definitely worth the hype. When I played the first half of the game, I was confident that I was going to give it a 10 out of 10, but once I started noticing the various problems in that last half, and a really disappointing combat system, my score went down to an 8 out of 10. Now this is not just a standard 8, this was so close to being a 9, but exploring and not knowing where to go became really exhausting for me, and it forced me to take continuous breaks, which is something that never happened with any of the previous Uncharted games. So with that said, go buy Uncharted 4, and despite the problems I mentioned, I guarantee you will thoroughly enjoy it. So this concludes Uncharted month. Also, if you haven't seen my reviews of the first 3 remastered Uncharted games, then click the annotations that will show up on your screen in a few seconds. And thus marks the end of the Uncharted franchise. It has been one hell of a ride, and one I will certainly never forget.
Holy shit!